You all know the story decently well. The Viltrumites, eager to expand their empire, discovered the Earth and sent an agent to it in order to find a mate, weaken the planet's defenses, and kill its strongest protectors in order to make the planet vulnerable enough for a full Viltrumite occupation. But something is wrong. Despite sending their best agent 17 years prior, they somehow haven't heard from them. Not even so much as a letter? A little rude, but okay. What the Viltrumites didn't know is they basically sent their agent to their death. And in fact, the agent likely didn't even last a full week on the planet. What the Empire didn't realize was that they sent their strongest to the Nasuverse Earth. But maybe that Earthling cake was so good that they just forgot. They are their best agent after all. No need to judge. But realistically, they didn't last that long at all. At first glance, Viltrumites are absurdly powerful. A single one can wipe out entire modern militaries, devastate entire cities, and survive in a vacuum of space. Their empire is built on the idea that individual strength outweighs numbers. They don't rely heavily on fleets or conventional armies because they don't need to. Against most technologically comparable worlds, one Viltrumite is often enough to tip the balance towards total conquest. Their entire expansion strategy reflects their confidence. Send one agent to stabilize the planet and then take it. The key limitation, however, is that everything the Viltrumites do is rooted in physicality. Their dominance comes from overwhelming strength, speed, and durability. They are built to win direct confrontations. However, what they are not built for is a world that doesn't play by purely physical rules. That's where the Nasuverse Earth becomes a problem. This version of Earth is not a passive planet. It operates as a system that can respond to threats through what's known as a counterforce. The system is divided into two aspects: Gaia, the will of the planet itself, and Alaya, the collective will of humanity. They function as automatic correction systems, acting through intermediaries and pre-existing mechanisms when the survival of the planet or humanity is seriously threatened. Alaya's role is a protector of humanity, and it does so by deploying agents such as counter-guardians and heroic spirits. These are legendary figures given form, often possessing abilities that go beyond raw physical power. They possess what is called a noble phantasm, which is basically like their ultimate move or special ability. Some noble phantasms can guarantee a hit, some bypass their ability or impose conditions that ignore conventional defense. A Viltrumite's durability doesn't necessarily protect them from an attack that operates on a conceptual level rather than a physical one, and this is where we have specific examples. A servant like Gilgamesh is an immediate high-tier threat. His Gates of Babylon allows him to deploy countless noble phantasms simultaneously, many of which carry conceptual properties. More importantly, Ea, his most powerful weapon, it disrupts space itself. Similarly, Artoria Pendragon's Excalibur can be used to oppose threats to the world. That kind of attack isn't something a Viltrumite can tank through durability alone, especially because a lot of noble phantasms can destroy a planet or a continent, but can't due to the hacks of the planet. Even if they survive the initial blast, heroic spirits can often spam their noble phantasms. Gaia, on the other hand, governs the planet itself. It doesn't simply create new life forms on demand, but does act through existing systems tied to the natural world. These include elementals, phantasmal species, divine spirits, and beings like true ancestors. For example, Archwade Brunstad can use Marble Phantasm, which manipulates probability within the bounds of nature. It doesn't freely rewrite reality, but it can shift outcomes in ways that makes the environment itself hostile or advantageous. More importantly, Archwade is not just another strong entity. She functions as the closest thing to the planet's direct incarnation. Her power scales with the planet itself, meaning she can draw on effectively vast reserves of energy and authority. In peak conditions, she can operate on a level where she can rival or overwhelm most threats to Earth. For Viltrumites, they may be fighting a being whose strength is continuously supported, replenished, and reinforced by the planet they are trying to conquer. Archwade's existence is directly tied to an ultimate one's will, making it one of the earliest and most overwhelming hard stops an invading force would encounter. This creates a major issue for the Viltrumites. They are used to fighting enemies they can see and overpower. In a Nasuverse, the enemy can be the environment, probability, or a rule they don't even realize has been imposed on them. The problem only deepens when you consider the organized forces operating behind the scenes. Institutions like the Clock Tower, Atlas Institute, and Chaldea represent three very different but highly complementary approaches with dealing with these big threats. The clock tower functions like a central hub of magecraft, housing centuries of accumulated knowledge, sealed artifacts, and entire departments dedicated to specific disciplines such as bounded fields and curses. While most individual magi will be physically outmatched by Viltrumites, the clock tower excels in their versatility, meaning they can establish bounded fields that distort space, spells that restrict movements, or impose conditions on anyone that enters a specific domain. They don't really need to overpower Viltrumites directly. They can shape the battlefield so that Viltrumites are already at a disadvantage before a fight even begins. In contrast, Atlas operates on prediction. Its alchemists specialize in calculating world-ending scenarios and producing solutions designed to counter them with absolute precision. Against Viltrumites, this could manifest as conceptual weapons or systems engineered specifically to neutralize their strength. Then there's Chaldea, whose purpose is the preservation of human history. Chaldea has direct access to large-scale summoning systems, allowing them to deploy multiple heroic spirits simultaneously in response to threats. This means coordinated servant-level resistance, strategic use of noble phantasms, and the ability to escalate in real time as the situation worsens. Although all three don't always necessarily exist within the same world, together these organizations co-create an army and defense so powerful and annoying to deal with that the Viltrumites may not even bother to step foot on the planet because of it. On an individual level, magecraft becomes more dangerous the higher up you go. Most magi will be irrelevant in direct confrontation, but the upper tiers operate on entirely different principles. The 5 true magics represent phenomena that fundamentally break the rules of reality. The 5th magic, wielded by Aoko Ozaki, is particularly dangerous because it involves the manipulation of time and causality. Another dangerous category is the Mystic Eyes, a depth perception. Users like Shiki Ryogi and Shiki Tono can perceive the lines or points of death. By cutting these lines, they can kill or destroy any target, regardless of their durability. That said, Viltrumites would not immediately lose across the board. In fact, they dominate the lower levels of the setting. Ordinary humans, most magi, and even some lower tier servants will be overwhelmed by their sheer physical superiority. They will appear unstoppable, tearing through defenses and establishing control in localized areas. The military's collapse and the initial response will likely be chaotic and insufficient. An argument can be made, however, with evidence mind you, that Gaia and Alaya would absolutely destroy the Viltrumite army before they even get within 10 miles of the planet's surface. Beyond even that, there are outliers in the Nasuverse that exist on a completely different level. Beings like Ort, the ultimate one, and Mercury represent a form of life that does not even conform to the concept of death. These beings would most likely not even intervene, but their existence will be just enough of a turnoff for the Viltrumites to not even want to come to our solar system. Together, the outcome becomes pretty clear. Viltrumites would probably dominate the lower half of the Nasuverse, including the weaker mages. In that context, they would be unstoppable, but they'd quickly get cooked once the higher tiers of the verse step in.
Did you just make me feel bad about your planet of genocidal maniacs almost getting wiped out?